Another historic question that was on the ballot was the topic of marijuana. And we know that with that whole legalization process, we have Colorado, we have Washington that passed the ballot legalizing the recreational use of marijuana. So my question to the panel is, do you support the legalization of marijuana? Let's start with Brother Terrence.
I do. I think I agree. I agree with it because I mean, let's take a look at marijuana, side effects of marijuana. You might get a little hungry, you might get a little spacey. Now that I implore you to go 1 o'clock in the morning, turn on TV, and see for some of these medications that will have you sleepwalking. You lose all control of your bowels just for no reason. It's ridiculous. And the real issue with medical marijuana is that what happened was back in the 20s, it was an idea of hemp versus medical marijuana, and it was this whole a big money effort went in to scare people about marijuana. Not that it's really dangerous. Alcohol, tobacco is so much more dangerous than marijuana. And the idea is if you ever take a Tylenol PM, you'll get more messed up and tore up on a Tylenol PM. You can't operate an automobile. You can't do anything like that compared to smoking a joint. So I'm someone that thinks that, you know, marijuana is our modern day prohibition. Most people are doing it, have tried it, know someone who is doing it. And it's just a really governmental issue with a lot of red tape. And if we could figure out a way to make it legal, regulate it, make it smart, tax it, then there you go, it would be smart. But we don't want to do that. We'd rather argue over it.
Ms. Chanel.
Oh, thank you, Terrence. I also have to agree with the legalization of marijuana. My approach is more on recidivism because I see most people who are locked up, who get arrested for marijuana, it's usually small possession charges. I think that would alleviate a lot of that because, again, like Terrence said, the side effects to marijuana are a lot lighter than the side effects of your basic prescription drugs that you probably get from your doctor. So on that standpoint, as far as side effects and those things are concerned, I don't see that that would be an issue. And also, I also think it would free up a lot of space. Not saying that we want to free up space, but you know what I'm saying, for people who I don't think that the charge that the being arrested because of marijuana at this point and in this generation is a help. So I think that legalizing it would be something positive.
Okay.
I think we've realized as an economy how to get the new tobacco, marijuana to be the new tobacco. However, as urban practitioners, we must look at how this will impact the populations that we serve. Marijuana is a gateway drug, and we need to be really careful about what we legalize in urban communities because urban communities are inundated with marijuana. So when we look at young people who use marijuana, and it's and also too, let's recognize that marijuana is not the marijuana of Dr. Archibald and my generation. It's more chemical induced. So we have to really be clear about what we're saying. I understand and I concur with the medicinal use of marijuana for medical use. However, recreational or otherwise. No, I'm medical. I'm not recreational. I'll have to come back on that. But I have to be really concerned when you talk about legalizing a drug that we know leads to more drug use and more intense drug use. So I would definitely have to see that as a factor in what we're doing. But as a person who understands politics, when you are looking at the taxes, when you're looking at those type of benefits, you know that tobacco soon will be something of the past and marijuana will be our future tobacco.
I have to agree with Ms. Smith. Like, I don't want marijuana legalized. When I think about marijuana, I think about when I see the effects on people. Like when I see the effects on my fellow young brothers, when their minds aren't as fluid, when their instincts are slowed, and like it doesn't comfort me. These are the next generation. If they have free access to marijuana, there's no doubt that their education will take a dive.
I disagree.
More than okay, we're gonna give you a chance to disagree later. But more than that, it's just I find it ironic that we talk about some issues and how it will impact the black community, but in other aspects, when something is perceived to be harmless or when it's okay to be recreational, whether it falls into the same category as tobacco or liquor, it's okay. But it still affects the community the same way. Young black men are going to be the ones using marijuana the most. They're going to be the ones purchasing it. They're going to be the ones, now that it's a business, they're going to think it's okay to aspire to be a pot dealer. Like, this is not a positive profile to put out there in the community, and I don't support it.
I don't believe that. I mean, I understand what you're saying about a positive profile, but you also have things like alcohol. You have things like cigarettes, and these are the same things where you might not like the way your brother looks when he's smoking marijuana, but did you see him when he got behind the vehicle after he finished drinking alcohol? You see what I'm saying? So to me, it's just like, if you can say all of you don't like the side effects with marijuana, how many side effects comes with alcohol? How many side effects come with smoking cigarettes or doing any other kind of prescription? I feel like at the end of the day, every type of drug is going to have its side effects. Every type of drug is going to have the things where people don't like about it and where people are still going to do it. But again, on the political side of it, I think it would be something good as far as revenue, and in the communities, I think we should find a way, as Terrence said, to regulate it, to make it better for a community. Because if you think about it, you don't like the way people look on marijuana, but what about everything else?
Well, I was born into a generation where liquor was already legalized, when cigarettes were already regulated.
Right.
That's not my choice, but I am in a generation where my generation will dictate whether marijuana is legalized,
Right.
whether it will be capitalized on. I don't want to get into this whole, if it's taxed, then we should be able to regulate it. They also said that liquor was going to be regulated, but I still see 16-year-olds walking around with 40s. They said cigarettes was going to be regulated, but I see 14-year-olds. You can't regulate morality, but it is our job not to make things okay. Now it's going to, let's take out the petty crimes, the misdemeanors, and make everything okay. I just don't like it at all.
Because everybody doesn't necessarily see it as something negative. I mean,
hold on one second.
Most creative geniuses.
And you're still talking. Hold on one second. Hold on one second.
I love this.
Let's begin to look at, because I also, when I heard what everyone is saying, and you're doing a wonderful discourse, but can we go back a second so we can kind of bring it together? One, let's look at one aspect that you stated. You talked about marijuana and the side effects that are less than others, which is true. However, it's not much different, especially the fact that the majority of people are not using it in its natural form.
Right.
Marijuana in its natural form, yes, we can talk about that and the benefits, but when you start, anything that you burn, it changes its property. So hemp in its natural form, the cannabis in its natural form, yes, you can begin to look at those properties. Once you burn it, and most of us put it inside something that has the carcinogens in it. So that's the piece that we're trying to get out to people, that yes, when we may have taken and put it in the brownies nowadays and put it in our spaghettis and our, make it a salad, that's a little different use than when we're talking about burning it. And let's talk about, I work with youth. This generation does not just use marijuana in its natural form.
Right.
They are adding things to it.
Right.
So that's where we begin to look at, if we're going to really talk about the legalization, then we need to talk about the whole process of the use of cannabis. And I think that's, when we're talking about a responsibility to our young people, not just the fact of just the utilization of the money and the medicinal aspect, is utilizing this marijuana in the form that they're utilizing it. Do we want that? That's what's happening, legalized? Because most of the people are talking about this medicinal aspect,
Right.
is what they're talking about. And remember, if you track alcohol, you can track how this was. You can track marijuana in its beginning. Most of our drugs were utilized initially as medicinal purposes, because they all have some level of medicinal purpose. So we need to kind of look at all of that, and how does that legalization, saying that this is legal, what does that say about the drug? What are we saying about the drug? And these are the things we want to talk about.